Bjornsson calls a new war council before the sun has risen. One of the 5 Castelline legions is in total disarray, missing its legate and 2 of its 10 centurions. The Vlari priesthood is as well, but Bjornsson and his primary followers are able to reassert control and order upon the camp. Nobody seems to suspect Cyril, and once his new wounds are treated by a medico, he attends to the war council. Bjornsson is fed up with the probing assaults. He wants a decisive victory to remind his army why they are here. He gives Olaf command of a huge force to maneuver north and prepare to assault the docks. Bjornsson himself will command the southern force. Unferth is still wounded from his night raid and Felix's arrow, so he sits the battle out. Cyril is wounded as well, but Olaf asks him to accompany the northern force and advise from the rear. Back at the docks, Steelshod indulges in a brief bit of relieved celebration that Leona and Hubert and Torthien have survived despite the hardships. Leona is still shaken, trying to keep it together while Agrippa stitches up her lacerations, bandages her severed ear, and otherwise patches her up. Hubert and Kara sit with her, spending some time with her after her wounds are treated. No matter how she tries, Leona is rattled to the core. She feels many things: anxious, hurt, afraid. But more than any other reaction, she feels rage. A bottomless, nearly uncontrollable fury starts to build up inside her. When he gets the chance, Hubert debriefs with Alexander and Joran. Cyril and Unferth's names, identities, current wounds, and general dispositions. He also picked up a quiet conversation Olaf had with Bjornsson as he excused himself from the torture. He caught the name Ragnar, verifying a theory Alexander and Joran have had since they first spoke with Hakon, confirming Bjornsson's identity as the same as the Ragnar Hakon spoke of, his virtues and strength twisted to his new, darker purpose of vengeance. Torthien confers with them as well, after Gilead has returned to Enoch's side. He doesn't explicitly address the elephant in the room of just what the fuck he and Gilead are up to in setting this up. He just speaks matter-of-factly about the situation, especially in regards to the leash he has now placed on Cyril. For the time being, they'll leave Cyril alone. The best double agents are the ones that are used carefully, sparingly, to maximum effect. Once Torthien heads off to get his own wounds treated, Hubert, Joran, and Alexander exchange a few words on the matter of the Knights Draconis. Joran is downright delighted at the idea that they have uncovered a couple of Draconis and have them in their corner. Alexander is cautiously optimistic, though he's always careful when dealing with people so trained in dishonesty that they can travel for months with someone and give no indication of this true nature, as Torthien has done. Ultimately, everyone's sleep has been disrupted, and once the most pressing matters are discussed, they all break to catch an hour or two of sleep. They are roused quickly when the Sephardic forces begin assembling at dawn's first light. Steelshod does their best to man the dock's defenses, but the frequency of the attacks has become such that they still have many wounded. Some, like Leona, sit the battle out entirely. Others, like Bear and Alexander, are starting the fight already battered and badly injured. Someone asked me about numbers. I dug up some of my old notes. As I mentioned in the comments, I have mixed feelings about numbers. Historians and historical accounts argue so much about troop size of armies. Early on, I erred on the more gritty Dark Ages feel of low overall troop numbers. But now, it's the final battle for the heart of the Midlands. Bjornsson has raised an army unlike the world has ever seen, so fuck it. Go big or go home. Here are some numbers. The defenders of Nahash: 720 Serpentes infantry, 410 Serpentes cavalry, and 243 Serpentes elite, with 868 Serpentes trainees and 300 Serpentes retirees. 700 Tarathian cavalry, 2,000 Tarathian infantry, 1,000 Tarathian archers, and 20,000 Tarathian conscripts, with about 60,000 civilians. The Sephardic forces, the Sfarmi in my old notes, 8,500 Krigar rabble, 8,700 Sephardic rabble, 4,750 Krigar warriors, 5,000 Sephardic raiders, 1,650 Sephardic elites, 3,000 Tarathian captives, 600 from the Bersark clans, including some Vartror, 150-ish from the Vartror clans, 200 from the Ulfsknar clans, 3,400 Spitalian mercs, 4,830 Castelline legions, 840 Lorinet chevalier, 230 Lorinet crossbows. So maybe 7,000 proper warriors, plus conscripts, plus civilians for Nahash, and some 40,000 troops under Terbjornsson. Given that the defenders have walls, that could be a lot worse, though you have to consider that the hundreds of Bersarks alone can pose a serious threat when concentrated in one place. And in any case, the disparity of numbers is still sizable, and this is after Terbjornsson's forces have suffered some heavy casualties. When the attack comes to the docks, it is overwhelming. Ballista bolts and heavy rains of arrows slow the Svards, but do not stop them. Serpentes knights and Steelshod warriors fight at the barricades blocking the canal streets. Cyril helps Olaf One-Eye to keep heavy pressure from the north, sending troops around to flank the defenders, and instituting aggressive maneuvers that capitalize on each bit of momentum they gain. Terbjornsson does not charge in himself, but his presence on the battlefield eggs his men on to greater aggression and valor. Felix gets into position and tries to put some hurt down on the Jarl of Jarls. He gets a good shot in, and then sees Terbjornsson unsling a huge reflexed bow of his own. Terbjornsson sends a couple of massive arrows rocketing towards Felix and his fellow archers. Each hit kills or wounds its target, including a shot that inflicts a serious leg wound on Felix, forcing him to put his head down. The barricades begin getting overrun. The docks are not going to hold with this number disparity in the forces. Alexander calls for reinforcements. Enoch throws open the river gate and his men rush to Steelshod's aid, but they're still losing ground and not willing to press the fight for the docks into a fight for the whole city. So Steelshod and the Serpentes finally sound a retreat. Yorin pops smoke to cover their escape, and they pull out of the docks. No dead among Steelshod nor among Terbjornsson's serious elites, but many more injured as Bear overexerts himself and is nearly slain by a Bersark, and several more end up on the sick list. Fundamentally, however, they have given up their fortification in the docks, and given up on a source of ample fresh water. The Svards smash the barricades and level some of the buildings in the docks before pulling out of arrow range. They advance their onagers closer to the walls, and pick up the pace of the bombardments. A defeat for the defenders. Not a crushing one, but a defeat nonetheless. Still, Enoch and the other defending commanders resolve to stay vigilant for a chance to push back into the docks. Since the Svards are not able to occupy the space so close to the walls, they may be able to retake the territory, or at least foray out for water. Morale among the people of the city, particularly in the middle circle, is beginning to wane. The city is suffering from significant overcrowding, mostly due to the thousands of displaced residents that used to live in the outer circle. They are now living in inns, streets, empty shops, warehouses, and anywhere they can be fit. The loss and the possible imminent rationing of water at Nahash's wells does nothing to improve the spirits of the city. Even more conscripts are being moved from the reserves and out to the walls or the gatehouses to join the garrison. Enoch leaves Steelshod mostly focused around the western wall, at the river gate, in order to retake the docks if they see an opportunity. Oliver has distinguished himself amongst the Misvier boys, and Steelshod attaches him to their forces. They even get him a horse, as Gerald and even Evan have marked Oliver as a surprisingly natural horseman. Alexander has noticed Oliver now as well, and even taken a liking to the boy's enthusiasm and courage, not to mention his fondness for horses. Alexander suggests that in the next battle, Oliver should stay close to him and not get too aggressive. A few more days passed, tense but relatively conflict-free. Leona is still mostly keeping to herself, though she has stated that she's eager to get back into a fight. She confides in Hubert and Agrippa that she still feels a deep and unrelenting rage. She wakes up angry and spends the day restraining herself from picking fights with the people around her. At Yoren's subtle and offhanded suggestion, Kara tries to have a heart-to-heart with Leona. Such things are the norm for Yoren. He rarely shows interpersonal interest in an obvious way, as Alexander might. He prefers subtlety and deniability. Kara ultimately finds that Leona's experience is far removed from her own, as is her reaction. It doesn't help much. Back in the Svartic camp, Unferth's wounds have begun to heal. He is moderately disappointed to have lost control of Leona and Hubert, but he has confidence that he's made a lasting impact on them. One evening, as he settles into his tent, he senses something amiss. A soft noise, a faint rustle of cloth. He reacts instantly, leaping towards the noise, ready to kill. He finds himself facing an intruder of extremely small size. A tiny, gnarled little man with an ugly countenance and broad ears, clad in dark skins. "Stop! I'm a messenger," the little man hisses in broken Middish. Unferth cocks his head at this. "What is your message?" he says. "I bring token for commander of this army," the little creature says. From within his clothes he withdraws a small, blood-red gemstone. "Then why have you come to me?" Unferth asks. "You are strong, fierce, quiet, and you fight our foes." "Your foes?" The little man nods. "We come to hunt our enemies. Watch, wait for right time, and kill. We see you doing the same. We can help. Our masters wish to speak with your master," he continues. "Your masters?" Unferth says. The strange man nods again. "And who are they?" The goblin grins, an ugly smile filled with jagged teeth. "The old ones," he says proudly.